Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between podcast. I am Renae, and the Space Between podcast is a podcast that talks about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band. We have over 32 years of fanship behind this band, and what a journey it has been following the Dave Matthews Band. So whether you're a new fan or an old fan, we welcome you to the Space Between podcast. Each week, we bring to you a different fan story from the over 32 years we have with the Dave Matthews Band. This week, I have met with Matt Gilo, and he is from the East Coast, and he is going to walk us through his journey and what that looks like, seeing over 100 shows. I believe he's on his 102nd show now, and so he's going to walk us through what that looks like, what his voyage, if you will, with the Dave Matthews Band has been. So again, if you are listening to this on a podcast app, thank you so much for listening. If you'll be sure to turn on the instant downloads every time we upload a new episode, you will get alerted. And honestly, that helps me with all the statistics that have to go behind a podcast to see if people are listening. But if you are watching this on YouTube, or if you want to watch this, be sure to check out our YouTube channel that is completely ran by our editor, Andy Mendoza. So thanks, big shout out to Andy. So be sure to check out our YouTube channel, which is the Space Between podcast on YouTube. Guys, I welcome you to the next episode of the Space Between. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between podcast. Today I am with my friend Matt, and he is going to guide us through his trip through the Dave Matthews Band. What brought him to be a fan that's been to over 100 shows of the Dave Matthews Band. Matt, thank you so much for being on my podcast. Introduce us, and then I'm going to let you have the floor to tell us your journey.
I appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me. I just got off that milestone 100th show. I'm at 102 now after the Gorge, and it's definitely been a journey for sure for 20, 25 years. So I'll kind of hit on some highlights of going to 100 shows, which is definitely a milestone. A lot of people, the people that are close to me, where I live in Connecticut, all think I'm like the biggest fan out there. And the reality is that there's so many other people that have been to a lot more shows, but that I'm very lucky to have gone to this many shows, and hopefully more to come. But
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing with the band is that where it started for me was in a cabin at a YMCA overnight camp in 1998, and the counselor Dan was literally playing Before These Crowded Streets over and over on the little radio that has the two speakers with the CD player that you push on top. And I was 12 years old, and I was used to listening to Biggie and Mace and Nelly.
Yes.
Not that there's anything wrong.
No.
Country Grammar is a great album. I went and saw Nelly on his little fair tour last year, because he's on the fair tour now, up at the Vermont Fair. But the thing is that those artists did not resonate as much as Dave Matthews Band has. So
what song was playing? Can you remember what song? Did you tell us what song it was?
I mean, it was of course I Fell in Love with Pig, which is on the album. But I just literally just couldn't get that album out of my head, and it actually changed who I was as a person. I was a kid that was 12. I was wearing like South Pole and Jinko and listening to P. Diddy, and then I like grew up and it's kind of taken me where I am today, which I think is just like been a wild ride, and I've met so many people through it. Along this journey, I brought my own friends from where I grew up, but then also met so many other people. So I just wanted to kind of talk about a couple of highlights throughout my 102 shows. And obviously that first show, which was August 4th of 2001 in Hartford. Hartford's my home venue. So I was doing a little stats. I've been to the theater in Hartford 28 times. 29 was,
Can I ask a question
yeah,
since we're talking about your very first show? Because to
sure.
me that's so important. I think as a fan that has just listened to the band versus a new fan that's been to a show and experienced it in front of their face, did your did it what changed? Something changed, right? Because when you see them visually and then you just hear them, I feel like you kind of get what's happening. But do you feel that way about your first show? Like did it open up something else inside of your head about this band, or were you just like locked and loaded, like, yes, I've made the best decision, this is the band that I'm going to follow?
I mean, it was definitely about the music, but I got dragged with people that were like 3 or 4 years older than me to this show. In 2001, I was 15 or whatever at the time, and um, they were all doing it because that's just what you did, right?
Right.
And it's funny because the people that are still listening to the band today were the people that were having the crazy parking lot parties, and like in Hartford, everybody knows like there was like cars getting overturned, people getting shot with rubber bullets, like it was wild back then,
Oh
and all
my
those people have grown up now.
god. Yeah.
I mean, it was those were the days of like, and those people that held on, which I would say are the people like myself, and I think I'm on the younger fringe of holding on. I'm 38, maybe I'm more in the middle, but um, a lot of those people that I went with that day one, I don't think any of them are fans like I am,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
and so I think it was definitely about the music and about like just realizing like, wow, how intricate of so many things they have going up on stage, just being wowed. And I still feel that now. Like people always say to you, and I'm sure they say it to you too, like, isn't every show the same?
Yeah.
Every show is not the same because what they don't realize is that, many acts do the exact same show every show, and
Right.
that these are literally written hours before and you have no idea.
Yeah.
So it feels, every show feels like not the first time, but it feels like just new, and that's what's
Right.
great about it because you have
Right.
no idea what's coming. I mean,
Right.
um,
That's I
and
think that's so attractive though, right? Like that is one of the reasons why we keep coming back, and how they can sell out continuously is there's a bit of a chase, like a game, right? Between fan and musicians, right? Like there's a chase between us. And I love that about this band.
and, and on top of that, like this tour, I was 4 rows back in the pit in Bangor, Maine, with my friend
Oh,
Dave, and then I'm on the lawn with my friend Orlando the next night in the pouring rain, and I'm having just as much of a great time,
yeah.
because it's about the music and who you're
Right.
with. And I think that that's
Exactly.
really that's what it's all about. It's like the people that you're with, the friendships that you've made. I mean, those are two people that are not from the town I grew up in. Those are people that I met because of the band and through friends and stuff like that. And that really says something because, and that's honestly what I enjoy the most is like just hanging out with so many different people, which I'm sure that you experienced some at the Gorge where people were coming up
Yes.
to you that, I saw you a couple times. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't work out that we actually met up there, but and that whole experience, of just spending time with people that have the same mindset.
It's amazing, right? And again, I feel
Yeah.
like that's even like if I had to make a list of like 1 to 10 of the reasons why I follow this band, I mean, that's definitely one of those. It may probably the very top actually. Like there's the music and then there's the fans underneath. But like that is one of the reasons why. It's just amazing people that we're all like-minded, right? Because we all are chasing after this band, and so we have some similarities, right? We already know we're the same across this line. And so yeah, I agree with you, like it's amazing to continue to meet new people.
Yeah. Um, that's definitely what keeps it going, and that's how I made my original trip to the Gorge, was literally with somebody who I met 6 weeks prior. So,
Yeah,
um, um, maybe we'll talk about that hundred show because you
let's do.
know I didn't plan it to be at the Gorge. Um, you know, I just happened to work out that it looked like it was gonna be at the Gorge uh, night two originally, and then I ended up jumping on the Mansfield bandwagon on my way back from Bangor, so it ended up being night one. But
I think that's
it
an
was
incredible place to get to celebrate that, right?
it is, a good friend of mine came out, someone that I grew up with, who was into the band, but then kind of got out of it. He came out with with his girlfriend, and they got to spend, so that was, they got to add to my group.
Yeah.
And really it was just like, and it was it was also, the group of mine is a group of people from all over the place. Someone from New Jersey, someone from Salt Lake City, people from Connecticut, people, and that's really what
People
makes
from
it.
Arkansas.
Arkansas, right? Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I saw you going around with the butterfly wings. And I'm sure that was like such a great experience for
It
you,
was
because
amazing.
I know like my first time at the Gorge, which was in 2019, and I got to go, and like I was just running around the pathways on the lawn like a maniac the whole time, which I was on night one when he played Pig in the Encore. I mean, I can't really ask for much more for my 100th show and have Pig in the
No.
Encore. So
I
I
mean,
mean,
you
that
got
was
it. I
that
mean,
was memorable.
you were dealt an amazing hand. Not only did you get to celebrate your 100th show, but I mean, you got your song. And I mean, this begs the question, and maybe you weren't ready yet, but like this begs the question of the hat. And so, guys, if you're just listening to this on the podcast, know that you can watch all of this on YouTube. That way you can see Matt. And I feel like you need to see Matt to understand what he is going to explain next. So, Matt, tell me about the pig hat.
All right, so I haven't worn it forever. It only really started somewhere around 2017 is my guess. Um, it's a hat that I've had since 2011, and it's a custom hat, and I actually found it at a workplace. And I knew that nobody had, that you couldn't find this thing online. It was probably made on Etsy or something like that. And
Yeah.
when I left that workplace, I took it, and I'm like, oh, I might use it someday. And randomly in, I think, 2017, I just started wearing it, and like it's been like nobody else has a Chef Pig hat. So
No.
like there's people like when I see people that give me high fives, or when I go to the Gorge, I see people who are like, look, we've taken a picture every year at the Gorge since this year, and they show me the other pictures. And um and it's just like and the thing is like it can, some people would think it was embarrassing or whatever, but like with the group of people that were around, most people understand like that Pig's a song. There's a couple people that
Yeah.
are like, oh, what are you wearing that for? And you can tell that they're probably not diehard fans, but the most people
Right.
are like, yeah, Pig. And of course,
Absolutely.
like I got Pig stuff, I got bracelets, all this kind of stuff. I got a Pig tattoo
Yeah, I
last year
love
when I
that.
was in Vegas,
I love
that
that.
I borrowed forever from a woman I met at Tahoe last year. I saw her, and then I saw her again actually this year, at Bend, and I was like, "Hey, did I meet you at Tahoe last year? Can I see your arm?" And then I showed her mine, and I was like, "Yeah, I took a picture of your tattoo, and I went to Vegas and had to put on my arm too."
We
But
have a tattoo connection.
yeah, um, but I mean, uh, yeah, it was. I don't think this actually happened, but I'm going to tell you that I ran into Rob
Hmm.
on the morning of night one at the winery, and I was
Awesome.
wearing my pig hat, and I was wearing this shirt, right, that has my 100th
Dave Matthews. It
show.
says 100th show. Okay, I'm going to read it for the
Yep,
not watching this. It says Dave Matthews Band 100th show, The Gorge. I love it. It's well done too.
it is well done, and my friends they're actually that's their
What does
brand,
it say?
but
Aha, gotcha.
yeah, so
ShredX?
Shred X, yeah, Shred
ShredX,
RX,
yeah.
Shred X, yeah. Um,
Awesome.
but so I'm like, Rob always says something about my pig hat. I've talked to him before. I've talked to him in Mexico. He's given me pics. And I was like, I always love that hat. I'm like, Rob, it's my 100th show tonight. I'd love to hear Pig. Now, do I think that Rob has any influence on Dave being like, hey, I doubt it. But I'm going to say that to get Pig in the Encore, which, usually isn't an encore song, I will pretend that the
You
stars
know what?
aligned and that
That's
Rob was
right.
like doing the warm up and saying, hey, it's the guy with the Chef Pig hat's 100th show tonight. Maybe, and it just kind of happened. Because, I
You
mean,
never know. But you believe
and
it. Just believe
that's all that
it.
matters, right?
Yeah.
That 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 that's like, and believe, believing that, that this is, I mean, this band is wrapped around that, right? Just believe, like it's just like it's
Yeah.
unbelievable that they've been around so long, that they're having more fun now than almost ever, probably. It seems like it, like they're really having a great time,
Yeah.
and the way that the way that I live my life is that, which is a reason why I like the song Pig. It's my favorite song. Don't burn the day away, right? I mean, that's what
Don't.
you did this year. You went to what, 20 shows this year?
I went to
Eh,
20 shows. Yes, I did.
Right.
It's not going to happen again, but this year was my Let's Find Renee year, right? So I did not burn the year. I just
Yeah.
took the year.
Right. And you know what? Who cares how much money it costs? Who cares? I always joke with people. I say money does grow on trees, you know, but you
Technically,
got.
it comes from trees.
That's right. That's right. And for those people out there that, have been second guessing the money aspect of going to the gorge or going to Mexico, you got to do it because the reality is, who knows when this is going to be over?
That's
I
right.
mean, like, I'm 38 and I'm thinking, all right, do I have till 48 where they're still playing? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll be lucky if it's 45, but it could be tomorrow.
It could
And
be.
and so if I have any word of advice for any fans that are listening, it's honestly to just do it. Who cares about the money? You only live once. You will regret it more for so long when the band stops touring someday
Mm,
than
so
you
true.
ever would, and that's kind of how I've lived my life with the band because people look at me and they're like, oh my God, why do you keep going to these shows? Why do you keep, I've been to 38 shows since COVID, right? Since
Hmm.
COVID was over, 38 shows. Um, I was at 64 shows during COVID, and now I'm at 102. So I put a lot of effort in the last couple of years.
Do you feel like you
Um,
needed it more now because we went through COVID? Do you feel like it kind of saved you out of the, and I say this loosely, but like so many people fell into a time of, depression and anxiety and like we didn't know what was happening. Do you feel like once the music came back, once we got to be around our friends and to hear the band live, do you feel like that helped pull you out of it?
oh, absolutely. I mean, um, I was lucky enough to be on the first live from home by request show with Pig. You got to hear my beautiful raspy voice on the radio, um, and I sent you that. And the first time I heard it, I'm driving. I had to like pull over. I'm like, oh my god, my request got through. And then I made it into the promo email for live from request version 2. So I was like, this is great. But I went to that first show in Raleigh and in
Yes.
2021,
Yes.
and they opened with 41, and I started crying, and I look at my buddy Dave, and he's crying, and we're looking around, but half the place is crying, and it's because like this is what we live for, really, is like going to shows. I
Before
mean,
we move into 2021, I want everyone to get to listen to your promo that was on XM Radio that you recorded. So we're going to take a little break. I'm going to let you listen to what everyone heard on XM Radio, and then we'll talk about post COVID and what that looked like.
Hey, Dave. This is Matt from Connecticut, the guy that runs around with the Chef Pig hat. I've been to 64 shows, and I wanted to thank you for being the #1 stay-at-home act of COVID-19 2020. It's given us all something to look forward to. Of course, I want to hear the song Pig. Love you. Don't burn the day.
Here we are back with Matt, and he is leading us into 2021. And so we're at Raleigh. We're at the first concert post COVID. I was so lucky to get to be there as well. And so I have to say, before you tell us your story, like I'm looking in my room, and Raleigh is one of the posters that I have up because it means so much to my heart, right? Like the vibe at that concert was so incredibly different because there was just a thickness in the air of gratefulness, right? Of just being so grateful to be there when we thought it may never come back, right? There was a period where we thought we may never get this back. And so tell us what your experience was in Raleigh in 2021.
well, the biggest thing was before the Raleigh show during COVID. I had reached out to this guy who was my camp counselor in 1998. I hadn't talked on Facebook. I literally like friend requested him, and then I sent him a message, and I was like, I just want you to know that you don't know this, and I'm telling you this now, 1998 to 2021, 20 something years later, that you changed my life
Mm-hmm.
by playing Before These Crowded Streets over and over in our YMCA Camp Woodstock cabin in 1998. And I felt like I needed to do that, and that's what COVID did, was make people think about these things, right? Like
Yes.
remember, just think about stuff that you've been so busy in your life thinking about. So of course, um, we did think that, was this ever going to end? Like we had and nobody had any idea.
That's right.
And then of course they announced the shows, but then moved them, right?
Right.
So like, so then we're like, okay, it's not happening this year. And just the joy and people at that Raleigh show,
Mhm.
I travel a lot with one friend, my friend Dave from New Jersey, and we were just like, he flew into Charlotte. We were just talking about it. Drove up to Raleigh, 2.5 hours, and just like really knowing that like, okay, this was going to be a memorable year,
Yeah.
um, 2021, and I met a bunch of people that I had just been kind of around the Facebook groups and a couple other podcasters there in Raleigh, and it was really a memorable night. One I'll never forget when he opened with 41, and literally like I'm sure you may have cried too. I'm the first. I'll admit that I cried. So
It
you
was just
know,
so unexpected for me. I
yeah,
don't know what I expected, but I did not expect 41 opener. And at that time, that was like, and it still is one of my favorite songs. But like, you know, how you go through your journey, like songs come in and out of that 1 and 2 position because of a certain thing you're going through. So 41 at that time was like my song. And so for them to open with that, yes, I think we all cried. And then the third verse of Gray Street, like there's so many
right.
things that happened in that concert that we'll never forget. So yes, yes, it was amazing.
And
I
that's a
cried.
good point. Like the third verse of Gray Street, like where did that come out of? It came out of Live from Home or the stuff that Dave was doing, and someone saying like, "Hey, why'd you stop playing it so many years ago?" And now
Right.
like now and even today, 3 years later, even when they start the third verse, you still get the people are still get the woos a little bit,
Right.
So
Yeah.
um,
It feels good to be at the original place where he brought it back. And it's those things like that that maybe make us a little bit more of a nerdy fan, but I fucking love it, right? Like those details are what make everything like so much better for me. So I'm glad that you understand like, oh yeah, yeah, that did happen in 2021.
and those are like the memorable things that throughout your timeline of seeing shows,
Yes.
like you
Yes.
remember, and I wrote some of those down. Like I was at Radio City with Dave and Tim.
Oh
So like,
God.
and I was like 13 rows back with my buddy Orlando. I got the poster. It was awesome. It's a
Oh
great, I mean,
my God.
how many of us, listen to that album frequently? I mean, I listen to it when I'm flying very frequently, the Dave and Tim at,
That
Radio
album
City.
is like forever and always will be one of the best. And shout out to my husband, like that version of Bartender still to this day gives him chill bumps. Like it's amazing. I don't know that it could ever be done exactly like that because that was a long time ago and their voices have changed and like things have changed, but that's an amazing album. I can't believe you
Yeah.
were there. That's awesome.
Yes, I was very fortunate to be there. Um, a couple of memorable things on my journey is um, in 6/5 of 2009, I went to the Today Show. Then he played in Hartford that night, so I literally got up with my buddy, took the train to New York, went to the Today Show taping. They played 5, 6 songs, then came back and went and tailgated in Hartford. Went to the Harvard show same day. Like
Awesome.
that's a memorable experience,
It was a Dave-cation, like a whole day of Dave, right?
Yeah. Um, the 2018 fall tour for me, I know that I know you live in Arkansas and,
Yes.
and you've heard this a million times. We're very lucky on the East Coast, especially in
Yes, you
New
are.
England and the Northeast, to get these
Yes.
shows that are night after night, like
Yes.
going to the 2018 fall tour, going to, 4 shows in 6 days. And then my voice sounding like it does now that we're talking, calling my friends on my way to the last show, which was, driving from New Hampshire to Albany and being like, I know you probably can't hear me, but like, this has been a blast the last so many days. Those are the things that you remember.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the,
You guys, I am a little bit jealous of the East Coast, but like I also understand why it is the way it is. So I'm not like, I don't think of it negatively. I'm just like, honestly, it gives me a really good reason to travel and to get to see so many amazing parts of our country. And that's one of the things I've learned this year, getting to go West Coast, East Coast, mid, whatever. And so our country is amazing. And sometimes I forget that, like, as we're planning to go on vacations with our families. So I always feel like we have to go, 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 leave the country. No, you don't. Like, our country is amazing, and each state is so uniquely different. And there's 50, right? Like, so we have so many opportunities to travel within our country. But like this year, I got to go to Philadelphia. I had never been there before. So much history, so much amazingness. And then the Dave Matthews Band was there. So I always joke that Dave is my travel guide. He's my travel agent. Kind of, he sets up where I go every year. So, I'm jealous of the East Coast, but not really, because it gives us reasons to leave and come see that side of the country.
Yeah, I mean, and that's for me for the West Coast. Like
Yeah.
I flew to, like, a couple weeks ago. I flew to Salt Lake. I stayed a night in Boise, Idaho. I went to Bend, Oregon show. Was 4 rows back there. I actually
Amazing.
finally, I finally caught a pick. I caught this pick that Dave threw
Yay.
out after Watchtower, and the people didn't see it fall behind me. And I dove down and grabbed it, and then went to Leavenworth, Washington, and then went to the Gorge, and like got to see that part of the West Coast, which like for East Coast people, we're like, oh my God, the world is, this country that we live in has really, really cool places like this, because
So
we're used
amazing.
to just traffic and buildings and not a lot of
Right.
land where I am in Connecticut.
Right.
Um,
Dave
so
does a good job of picking beautiful places, right? He really is the best travel agent. So if you're looking to like check out something that is, and I interrupt myself, but like when I was at SPAC this year, of course there were a lot of people there that were from bigger cities on the East Coast, right? And they kind of explained that SPAC is like a haven away from the city. It's kind of their getaway. They get in the woods, the feel of nature. Like, so I see the draw of the venues that Dave picks. It really is to kind of put people in different places. And so, yeah, it's amazing.
it's even like, just talking about venues, it's like Bangor, right? Like all this stuff is all over the Facebook groups and the boards saying, oh my God, I can't believe there's so many tickets left and all this other stuff. And there was a lot of tickets left, but you know what? It didn't feel like it when you were there. And the reality is like he put a great show
It
on,
was one of the
and
best shows of the tour,
right,
honestly.
and it was an hour and a half late because there was a rain delay. I
Yeah,
mean, and so it doesn't really matter. He's like, you know what? I don't care if the thing is sold out or if there's 3,000 people. It's going to be an epic night, and that's what he
that's
did. And
right.
people were
And
like,
it
wow,
was. Yes, we were
this
all
what a
jealous.
show. Yeah. And of course, I think everybody was able to listen to that,
Yeah,
live
yeah,
on
we did.
Sirius. So,
So many rain
um,
songs. It was amazing.
just a couple more memorable things in my kind of repertoire here, outside of all the Connecticut shows that I went to, which is about a third of the shows,
Yeah.
is um, thank God for all of us for listening so heavily to Sirius that they made the channel full time. Well, back in
Yes.
2019, Dave announced this, Cape Cod solo at some house on the water.
Yeah.
And of course, like it's like this secret spot, only 300 people are going to get to go. And my friend that lives in Mass, he's like, drive up here. It was like a Monday, right? He's like, drive
Uh-huh.
up here and we're going to figure this out. I have an idea where it's going to be. And so he's from like right outside of the Cape. And
Uh-huh.
so we go and we literally wade out in the water like a quarter mile. And I have a fifth of Fireball to make sure I stay, warm throughout
Yeah.
the time. And we can see Dave on the stairs of this house that's on the water outside of this beach in Cape Cod. And we got to see the whole show.
Oh
Dave's
my
solo
God.
acoustic that was just for these 300 people for Sirius. And because he knew that like from this beach we could get there and like go see the show, like what an epic time that
Oh
was.
my
All these
God.
boats were
Yeah.
pulled up. There was probably like another 150 people with us waiting in the water. I literally stood in the water for 5 hours. I couldn't even. You can just imagine what it's like
Yeah.
after being in standing water for 5 hours. Thank God I had the Fireball, but and
Oh,
Dave, wait, we're like before the show started, like an hour before, maybe an hour and a half, he was like talking to us in the ocean.
that's
Like how cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
You could
cool,
never forget that. That is a unique experience, right?
Yeah.
And
And
only a few people have that story.
yeah, I mean, we, the funny thing is, I think we tried to like, tell them that we were part of the 300 people. So we're
Oh,
like, yeah, we're Mike Smith +2.
yeah.
Like, let's just take it. Like, I'm Brandon Jones. I swear to God, my name's on there. Like, let's take a guess. The odds are in our favor if we choose
That's
choose
right.
a name like that, right? Um, and then my first Gorge experience, right? So I knew
Yeah.
that the people that I had not dragged, but my friends that had gone to me to all these Connecticut shows weren't going to go to the Gorge with me. And I'm at the Jones Beach show in 2019. I'm sitting outside my vehicle and I'm drinking a Truly, and I got a bottle of Casa Amigos next to me, and this guy who's a great friend of mine now, Dave, and his wife come over, and they're like, "Hey, are you by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah, right now I am." And they're like, "Hey, come drink with us."
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of those 3 hours, he goes, "Listen, we're going to the Gorge. We're going to go to Colorado. Then we're going to go to all the national parks. If you want to go to the Gorge, which is literally 6 weeks away, I'll pick you up in Seattle." And um, it's kind of how I live my life, right? Like I knew that, like, you don't burn the day, right? Like
Right.
who knows if I'm going to be alive tomorrow? Who knows if I'm ever going to be able to do this? I'm going to be upset with myself if I don't go to the Gorge.
Yeah.
So of course that was the partial Jones Beach show that got canceled after 8 songs or whatever it was.
Mm.
And we ended up going back the next night. And anyway, I texted this guy who's a great friend of mine now, and I'm like, "I'll see you in Seattle." And so him and his wife and brother picked me up in Seattle. Some guy that they had known for 6 weeks, and we went and brought me to my first Gorge experience, which was like, almost, which is like probably similar to how yours was this year. Like you were like talking to people, but then you had the butterfly wings on. You're running around the lawn,
Yeah.
and then I mean, you crest over the hill, and you're just like, oh my god, this is like, you cannot explain this to somebody. You need to
No,
take them,
you have to see it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then the sun's going down, and you're just watching this whole thing, and you're like, wow, I'm very lucky that I was able to do that. I'm sure you feel the same
Absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something that I feel like, I mean, the music this year, and I'm sure, I mean, it's this way every year because I hear people, but maybe I feel this way because it was my first time or whatever. But I feel like the set list that we got this year, all 3 nights, like if you look at all 3 nights, you're like, oh, it was just the perfect combination of the year. I mean, we got Spoon, and we've been chasing that for so long. And I know that, they got it a few dates back, but like we got it, and we got so many amazing songs. And again, like 2023 was just such a great year of old songs and new songs, and I don't know, I just feel like they couldn't have done any better. So the Gorge was unexplainably awesome. And
But now you've committed to going to the Gorge for the rest of their. You can't not go to the Gorge now, because you're gonna
I don't
kick yourself.
know.
You
I
got you
feel
have to go every year. You have to. It's just like one of those
I
things,
don't know. I feel like it was for me, and of course I know you're coming from East Coast to go to West Coast, but like it is financially probably one of the most expensive shows to go to. So if I can go to more venues, I would. For me, like I'd rather go to more venues than to go back to the Gorge, just
Sure.
because that's my journey, right? That's not everyone's
Yeah,
journey.
yeah.
That's
Of
mine.
course, but
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you got to go to 20 shows this year. That's
yeah,
that's quite the feat, and obviously you made a very wise choice and picked a great year because of how many songs have been played throughout this tour. It's obviously the most songs ever in terms of different songs, and
right,
um, there are some new covers, and there wasn't a ton of covers, and
right.
you know and stuff like that. I mean, actually, so at the Gorge for my 100th show, I wore this other shirt, and this was really fun. So I wore this shirt. You might have saw it, right?
No, I didn't. High five for the
Okay.
100th show.
I
I
must have
love
got
it.
about 150 high fives on Friday night.
Yay!
Oh my God. It was like awesome. And like people were just like running up to me, and they're like, yeah, 100, like people are like screaming. I had people coming up to me, handing me stuff. Hey, my wife sent me down because they saw your shirt.
Oh my
I'm down
God.
like at the bar. They're like up in the lawn, and this guy comes up to me. He's like, my wife sent me down with these two things. Congratulations on your 100th show. Like that's the that's the fans, right? Like
That's
that's
amazing.
yeah, like that's what makes you smile about the band always, is like the fans. Like you don't, it
I would
was
say for the most part, people do get excited about other people's journey. Like, yay, we're excited you have been able to go to 100 shows. And I mean, yes, there are a few salty people out there that are like, what the fuck are you doing with your money? You need a financial
right.
advisor. Blah, 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 blah. It's not about that though, right? For the most part, it is like, yay, thank you for like investing in yourself and investing in your happiness. Like, thank you for taking care of yourself, right? Like, because
Yeah.
nobody your business. So if you find joy at Dave Matthews Band concerts and you want to invest in your happiness, fucking do it. So
That's right.
congratulations for loving on yourself, Matt.
Yeah, my friend found that out the hard way when he posted early on in the year that he was going to 28 shows, and you got the people and then you got the haters, and I think he had
Yeah.
to delete that post because he was getting trolled pretty hard by a couple people, and it's like, you know what, forget
Like,
about it. Don't
dude, you
don't
don't
worry
even know
about it.
how
Just
much
worry about
money
yourself. That's
you have
right.
no
Yeah,
clue how much is in my checking account, so shut the fuck up.
money does grow on trees, and I
It
don't care
does.
because if I die tomorrow, at least I'm having a good time.
That's right. That's right.
And honestly, and that it's funny I say that because I unfortunately I'm someone who have thought, like, I'll be completely honest, I'm not gonna, who knows, I don't feel like I'm gonna live forever. Some
No
people,
one does. No
yeah,
one does.
and I, but and that's why, like, my favorite songs all kind of wrap around that death thing,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously, Big is like Don't Burn the Day Away, and then my other two favorite songs are You Never Know and So Right. And
Oof. Ooh,
right, and
yes.
some key lines obviously, and like so right is tomorrow we may die, and then
Mhm.
every day should be a good day to die, and you never know, like those,
That's
like,
right.
and that's and and that's why I go to 14 shows this year, and I spend the money on Mexico, and I go to the Gorge, probably the same, because you know what? I'm not going to get it back. I'm not going to, when I'm 70 years old and the band's all passed away by then,
Yeah,
what is having, more zeros in my bank account going to do for me? Absolutely nothing, because I'm going to be sitting there drooling
exactly.
on myself if I make it that long.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and I think that we've reached an age. Most of us have obviously matured, and we're in a position where we can travel because, like, we're not 20 anymore. But I work with senior adults, and one of the things that I get told the most is that the 40s, your late 30s, your 40s, and even into your 50s are the best time of your life. Like when you are 80, 90, you are going to look back, not when you're 20, because that's like mostly when we do stupid stuff and experiment, but like in your 30s and 40s is when you kind of got in your groove, right, and you're happy. So I say continue to invest in yourself, because these are the times you will look back on. These are the moments, so make those memories, right? Make them.
Absolutely.
That's what the songs
Always.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm so do you go into the next year kind of planning, or do you just fall into shows? Like, how do you plan your tour?
Um, well, obviously there's a fall tour this year, which unfortunately for me, I have to work. We got the company I work for. We're doing two new store openings, so I'm probably not going to be able to make any of those shows. But I don't plan, like, I'm not one of those people that are like, oh, I hear that they're going to be playing Charlotte on this date and book a hotel or whatever. I don't do any of that.
Yeah.
I request tickets to the shows that I think I'm going to go to. I a lot of times I only request one ticket. You know what? Because that's all I need. Like, I don't need four tickets. I
Right.
don't even need two tickets half the time.
Yeah.
And then I also, I'm somebody who is very satisfied if I'm in the pit, a seat, the lawn. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
I'm just happy to
Right.
be there. And I think that
Exactly.
that's that's it. That's important to me because I see the posters behind you, and I don't know how many you have, but if you get in that poster game, it could be a deep dive. And you want to talk about spending money? I
I
mean,
don't have a lot, but I do have the Sperry, and it is not here because it is being professionally, like, museum quality, being like I cannot wait to get that shit in
yeah,
my. But yeah,
that
these are.
that's gonna run you upwards of three hundred
My
dollars at
God,
least.
it was
Yeah,
$350 just to fucking have it framed. I was like, oh my God, this is my retirement plan right here. I don't know, it's stupid.
yeah. But so yeah, I don't plan anything. I'm just like, you know what? I love watching I cringe, but I love watching the feeds. Like when they're like, "Oh my God, are they not going to do Dave and Tim in Mexico this year because they haven't announced it?" And then people are
Yeah.
posting like when they've done it the last 5 years, and I'm just like I stay out of the social media limelight, but I'm just like rolling my eyes, like, "Oh my God, they're gonna do it." Of course, they love doing the Mexico stuff, and I
Yeah.
don't know if have you been to Mexico?
I have not.
Oh, you got you. It is
I want
5,000.
to.
Yes, because it's a totally different experience in the gorge. And I will say that when you're able to quickly compare it to that gorge, so like going, for the Gorge here in September and then going to Mexico in February. Those two things are totally different experiences, but they're both with the same group of people.
Right.
And, that Mexico is 5,000 really true fans. You don't get the people that, I sat in VIP one night at the Gorge and literally I was looking at the boxes and they weren't even dancing. And I'm like, I had a VIP box and we're up like going crazy and there's people next to me that like we're trying to like get them up to start dancing. Well, it doesn't happen in Mexico because you're spending so much money to go to
Right.
Mexico. So like it's literally 5,000 true fans, the pool parties, the stage at the pool, and then just it's like spring break for our age. Like I call it like spring break for 30
Yay!
30 to 60-year-olds. Plus the bonus is 3 shows on the beach for Dave and
Exactly.
Tim, and
Exactly.
this year they're doing a fourth night, so like again, it's like a bucket list item that um, I'm glad I did, and I'm one of those people that like when I do something, I do it very thoroughly, which
Hmm.
means like I'm going to be going to the Gorge in Mexico for the rest of the time that the band's around, and so it is what it is. I try not to think about the money thing. I just keep telling myself it grows on trees, and it's been working for me so far, so I'll take it.
That's right. Well, here's some maybe some I've got some maybe in my life when it comes to Mexico. The other day, and I try not to bring it up because like I know it's a costly um thing to do. I mean, there's the tickets, and then there's the airfare and like it just requires so much. But so I don't bring it up. But my husband actually brought it up the other day and was like, "What would you think about going to Mexico?" And I'm like, that's a dumb question like for me, but I'm like, "Yes." So there's a slight possibility we're talking about it. So I'm excited to always hear. I've not heard one negative thing about it yet. Like no, well, that's not true. I did hear from one person that the food was not that good, but I think that
But
that's just a very personal opinion.
oh,
Also,
absolutely. Of course it is. And I'm glad you say that because I've been to Cancun area I think over 12 times. I used to
mm-hmm.
go on spring break in the early 2000s, and I've been to a lot of different hotels there. The food actually at the Moon Palace is is on the upper echelon of all inclusive food, and they put out separate food that you can't get at the hotel. Like if you go right now,
Uh-huh.
every night at the show. I mean, I don't know if you know the setup, but there's like all these other, there's all these other food stands that are at the show that are just for the people that are spending the amount of
Oh,
money that we
awesome.
are to go to Mexico. So it's not like you're going to these restaurants and you're getting the same, buffet every night. But of course, food is something where, there's so much range in what people's
Right.
opinions are that like
Oh
I
yeah.
would think that I would think that people overall are happy with the food, happy with the service, the drinks. The crew there does a great job, like getting drinks to you out in the show. Like you're literally standing barefoot in the sand, and people are like coming through with their plates of beer and drinks, and they're
Mhm.
like trying to get to somebody, And so like it's a really cool experience, and you get to hear all those songs from the solo album from Some Devil, those
Mhm.
songs that like Too High and all those kind of songs that you're never going to hear full band. You get to hear
Right.
them, and it kind of like
Right.
crosses those off your bucket list. You're like, okay, I got to hear Too High,
Exactly.
thank God.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
I hear like because it's so intimate, he does a lot more talking, which is really interesting to me because I'm such a backstory person. Like in general, I love to hear like an origin story. And so I feel like or from what I've heard, just tells you more of those type things. And so do you feel that way? Do you feel like you
Oh,
get Dave personally or like whatever?
I mean, you know how he is, right? Like his story goes from like talking about something to poop, right? And then
Yeah.
to a fight, and then to like, you know, the thing is like you get like 10 minutes sometimes of him just going on, and it's like this, right? It's like sideways, up and down. He
Yeah.
jumps in one. Tim's laughing over there, Rob's laughing, but he's just like going on and on. And then like there's a kerfuffle in the audience, and he's joking about that, right? And
Yeah.
so like so yeah, so I would say that like that's another thing that like fills your heart with joy is like hearing these crazy stories that he talks about that like deep down he there's a meaning at the end and he finally
Sure.
gets to it, and one of the stories last year, the meaning was to be quiet and
Uh,
listen to our acoustic show instead of talking, which I mean, the talking wasn't that loud, but like he got to it like 12 minutes later after telling us his whole story about, when he was over in Europe with the band and they were in the Vatican or something like that. So like, yeah, like those stories are like really, really fun to just listen to. And the thing is like when he starts talking, everybody listens.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not like you can't hear it. It doesn't matter if you're in the back of the
Hmm.
facility there, you can still hear what he's saying because everybody wants to hear his stories and they
Yes.
know that he's going to say some funny ass shit and that they're
Yeah.
going to laugh and Tim's over there giggling and laughing, so yeah, I would say that the Dave speak is definitely a huge pro of Mexico and I'm sure like he's drinking a little tequila throughout the day or whatever before
Sure.
he goes, so I can't blame him,
With everyone else, right? So how are the
yeah.
drinks? Because that's another question that I guess I would ask if for for someone that's looking to go into Mexico, if you are a drinker, like what are the quality of the drinks? Like are they just watered down so much that you are gonna have to drink 20, or are they actually like fairly well made drinks?
Like this is what our people do well and you know what our people do well is they listen to other people, right? Like leaving the gorge, there's not garbage all over the place. Going to Mexico, you're bringing money to tip these people. These
Yes.
people are working very hard for us. If I want, I drink my Malibu and pineapple a lot when I'm in Mexico, and
Yeah.
so I want Malibu. I'm gonna make sure I give them a tip every time, or I gave somebody a big tip if my server, and I'm gonna get Malibu and pineapple every time.
Right.
And
Right.
so like, and you bring your own glass, right? And you make these fun
Hmm.
glasses, and you put your name on it, and all that kind of stuff, and they'll fill it up. You're not. It's not like you're drinking, 10-ounce solo cups of of
Some
alcohol that's
punch.
very that's some rum that got made out in the
Yeah.
wilderness. Like you're getting you're getting what you get by doing what we should be doing, which is thanking these folks for taking care of us. Yes, the vacation is expensive. Yes, we spent a lot of money to get down there, but you know what? There's still money, and the world still goes around on money. And given these folks who definitely, don't make as much as many of the people there, they deserve that, and they will take care of you, and they
Absolutely.
remember you. You give a server if you're at the pool, you know, 20, 30, $40 for your group, and you got service for the next 6 hours every time you want another drink. So the drinks are what you make of it, because if you don't, you might get the
Mhm. Yeah.
off-brand coconut
Sure.
rum, but if you do, you can ask for Malibu every time and you get it.
Right,
So like,
right. It's all
yeah,
about how you treat people. Yeah. I mean,
absolutely,
as you
yeah.
should with your wait staff. And so you're the second person that's told me that is it's really just about loving on others. And if they're being loved on, they're gonna love on you. And so, that's the way the world works, right? For the most part.
And
Well, it's the
that's
way
what's
it
great
should
about these.
work.
That is the way it should work, and that's what's great about these people. You always hear like people that know folks that work like at the Gorge or in Mexico, and obviously both of these places have other bands and other crowds,
Yeah.
and you always hear that they love the DMB fans the most, and I think that that's really important.
What a
You
compliment,
know,
right?
yeah, like they like that says something about the group of people that listen to Dave Matthews Band. You know, obviously we know what kind of craziness has happened at the Gorge this year, and we
Hmm.
got to see some of the repercussions of it with the security and the gun
Yeah.
checks and all that.
It's
It was never like
wild.
that before, but there wasn't a peep of anything that happened on DMB weekend, and those people look forward to that because a lot of people say, "Yep, it's my favorite weekend. The people are great. There's no fights. There's no craziness," and I think the same thing goes for Mexico. All these similar all these different kinds of acts, whether it's EDM or country or rock or whatever, are going, and they like us the most, which I like
Yeah.
because that's
I
the type of
mean,
person we
I
want to
think that's
be.
a compliment and it kind of just
Yeah,
adds to what we're all saying and makes us feel maybe it's makes us feel maybe a little less crazy cuz it's true, right? Like Dave Matthews Band people for the most part are kind people, right? And so that is
yeah,
definitely the impression that we want to leave behind and kind of the whole story that I'm writing about the fans of this band is it's just an amazing group of people that really want to focus on doing good, loving others, and leaving a mark on this world that is a positive mark instead of a negative mark. So, thank you for being part of this story. And it's amazing, how many different kinds of people and where they're from and what their story is. And each story is unique. And so, of course, your story has been completely different than anyone else's story will be. So thank you for sharing that today. So wrapping up, tell us kind of like what has been your favorite part? And I mean, you've hit so many things, but like, are there any closing thoughts that you would like to tell us about your Dave Matthews Band experience and the years that you have put into being a fan?
You know, I think it wraps around the love portion, right? I mean, someone gave me this at the Gorge, and it's a
Yeah.
coin that says. And a lot of people have that tattoo, and they hold the sign up. But I think it's that the love for the band, but the love of the people that are around you, that are also experiencing this with you, is that, like, if I was someone who, you know, um, didn't meet people out on the road and then start piggybacking and going with them, I probably wouldn't. I didn't have a large group of people that were going to be DMB fanatics like me where I live,
Right.
and
Right.
like, the people that went to those shows when we were in our 20s are not going to the shows now as much,
No,
unless I
for the
drag them. And I'm
most
not
part.
dragging
Right.
them. They like it. They like the band. They just don't like it as much as me. So I think that, making those, seeing those, going to those, going to those meetups, those Night Zero meetups, or I, the people that I started going to Mexico with is a singles group. It's on DMB Family Singles.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I got pulled out of a Google Doc that someone made and said, "Hey, you want to go to Mexico with us? It's going to be you and five other women." I'm like, "Yeah." None of us know
Yes.
each other, and we ended up in Mexico. In 2021, or 22, I should say. And like that, and now, like this, now we're like going to seeing each other at the Gorge and going with some of those people, and then we're going to Mexico again. So it's like, it's if if you feel as much as I think that both of us do, like, you just got to do it, just do it. Forget about the money aspect. I mean, I'm going to say that, but not everybody's
Yeah.
going to take that to heart. But
Of
forget about
course
the
I
money
do.
aspect, because the reality is that the major range of this group, and I hate to say this, but like, in 5 to 10 years, this is all going to be over for us,
It is.
and we're
It
going to
is.
be sitting here listening to you know, the album that started it back in 1998 for me, Before These Crowded Streets, saying, "Yup, I'm not gonna, be upset that I didn't do anything that tied to the band. I'm gonna say, you know what? I went to over 100 shows. I went to the Gorge. I went to Mexico. Do I wish I went to the Central Park show? Yes. Do I wish I went on the cruise whenever they did that, whatever year that was? Yes.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, of course I do. But you know what? You can't take back those things. But what you can do moving forward is you can just live for the day, live that life you want to live. Forget
Yeah.
about money. Just have a good time, because you know what? We're all going to be very, very sad when it's over, and we're not on the right side of that, unfortunately. And I'm a realist, and that's the way it is. Like,
Yeah.
they started in '91. A lot of the band members are in their early to almost mid 60s. It's just reality, and we have to
It is.
understand that. So, do it now while they're here, because you don't want to be sitting on your porch at, for me, let's say 49 years old, if I make it that long, and say, "Yeah, I wish I went to the Gorge." No, go to the Gorge, go to Mexico,
Go to
go
the
to
Gorge.
Europe if
Yeah.
you want. I don't care. I know you probably want to go to South Africa. Go to South Africa. I mean, I know you probably can't, but
I
go
mean,
wherever you want. You know,
money always gets in the
I
way. It's
know, I know.
crazy.
Yeah, you listen. That's right. Do it while you're working, so that you can
So I
continue
can
to pay
afford
it
it.
off. So I'd like to go. I'd like to go to Europe too. I mean, if they go to Europe next spring, which it sounds like they're going to, I'm going to try to get over there, because that's going to be a totally different vibe than it is here. Just
Absolutely.
smaller
And
venues,
just,
different.
yeah,
Yeah,
completely different vibes. I've heard Dave talk about Europe, in the past, and how people are quieter there. And so it is a completely different vibe. So I'd like to experience it all over the world. And, hey, Dave Matthews Band, just hire me, like whatever. I don't even know what I would do, but like I'll show up every day.
that's right. You'll be at work. You will work 120% every day and enjoy what you do. Right? I
I
mean,
will love it. I will support them
yeah.
100%. But I mean, I think, Pig is such, even if, you're a new Dave Matthews Band fan, even, if you've been to 100 shows, if you've been a fan since 91, or, whatever your fan story is, I think what we can remember is the takeaway of each of these songs. It's don't burn the day, and yes, that means live life for today, and not only in the Dave Matthews Band world, but like chase your dreams outside of that. Like make them as real as anything, right? I'm just feeding you lyrics. That's all I'm doing. But you know, the lyrics of this band, it's just life. There's so much life in that. There's so many lessons. And sometimes those lessons aren't ready. You're not ready to hear them. And that's why songs change in your head and you hear something and you're like, oh, fuck, what was that? Right? Because it wasn't made for you until that moment. And that's just one of the things I love about this band is it continues to change and it continues to feed me exactly when I need it. And so thank you so much, Matt, for just being willing to be on this podcast and share.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are listening to this on a podcast, thank you so much. And be sure to subscribe to everything so that you get instant downloads every time we upload a new episode. But be sure to check out our YouTube page as well, where you can see this. And I want you to see Matt's pig hat. I feel like it's an important part of the story. So definitely check the Space Between Podcast YouTube channel as well. Guys, thank you so much. Be sure to check us out next Friday for another episode. Peace, love, and Dave Matthews Band.